I arrived at Christmas with my kids. My dad looked me straight in the eye and said, "It was peaceful until you came." My 7-year-old dropped his gaze in silence. I kissed his head and told my dad calmly, "Then my money's coming with me." 5 minutes later, he was begging. That Christmas Eve, I walked into my parents' house, clutching a $10,000 check and a fragile hope. I left with a shattered heart, a slapped father, and the gut-wrenching realization that some family wounds never truly heal. My kids, Logan and Ava, trudged behind me, their little feet dragging through the snow like they already sensed the storm brewing. As I pushed open that familiar front door, the air inside hit me first, cold, stagnant, just like their refusal to ever fix that ancient draft in the hallway. The same dusty garland from the early 2000s still clung to the banister, the same cracked nativity set sat on the mantel, one wise man perpetually missing. It was all so achingly, suffocatingly the same. I hadn't spent Christmas at their house in 3 years. Not since the explosive fight about my divorce. They never liked my ex-husband, but somehow, when I finally left him, I was the one to blame. And even after I fought my way up to a promotion, bought my own house, paid off every single dime of debt without a shred of help from anyone, even then, it felt like I was never quite enough for them. I think, deep down, I showed up that year holding on to a desperate, foolish hope for some kind of thaw, some flicker of warmth. But inside, it was already crowded, a cacophony of forced festivity. My dad's siblings were all there, laughing a little too loud, dressed in an assortment of red sweaters that seemed to have materialized from the same discount bin. My Uncle Greg offered a brief, non-committal nod. My cousin Rachel whispered something to her boyfriend, her smirk cutting me like a knife. And then there was my dad. Of course. He was already holding court in his worn-out recliner, looking like some bitter patriarch convinced the world owed him a Medal of Honor. He saw me standing there, framed in the doorway, and didn't even bother to fake a smile. His voice, low and laced with a familiar venom, cut through the festive chatter like glass. Everything was peaceful until you showed up. Just like that. No hello, no Merry Christmas, no hug for his grandkids. Nothing. Just those words, tossed like a live grenade into the middle of the living room. My youngest, Logan, froze. He was holding a handmade card, a masterpiece of snowmen and glittery stars he'd drawn especially for his grandpa. His small hands, still clutching that card, slowly lowered. His eyes dropped to the floor, as if he was the one who had just done something terribly wrong. My heart ached. I leaned in, kissing the top of his head, tasting the salt of unspoken tears. Then, a cold, hard resolve settled over me. I straightened up, took a deep breath, and spoke. My voice, surprisingly steady, carried across the suddenly silent room. Then my money's leaving with me. It was like I'd flipped a switch, plunged the whole house into a shocked silence. My mom gasped softly, a little sound lost in the sudden void. Rachel actually stopped chewing her peppermint bark, her jaw hanging slack. My dad's face went utterly blank, like someone had just told him he'd lost his entire life savings in a poker game. "What money?" he finally managed to ask, his voice hoarse. I didn't answer him. Instead, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a crisp, white envelope. I held it up for everyone to see. $10,000. It was supposed to be a surprise. I'd meant to hand it to them after dinner, a peace offering, a bridge. It was earmarked for their perpetually leaky roof, the broken furnace they complained about every winter, that kitchen they'd been renovating in their minds since I was a teenager. I'd spent 6 painstaking months putting that money aside, bit by bit, believing, foolishly, that maybe this would finally make them see me differently. Maybe they'd finally be proud. Instead, with a searing satisfaction, I tore the envelope precisely in half. The sound ripped through the silence. I let the pieces flutter to the floor like discarded autumn leaves. "You are going to give us that?" My mom's voice trembled, finally finding its way back to her. "I was not anymore," I said, my voice ice cold. I turned to leave. Ava was already halfway to the door, trying desperately to hold back her tears. Logan, that sweet, innocent boy, was still standing there, clutching his stupid snowman card, a silent victim in this brutal family drama. I took his hand, and we started walking out. By the way, if you're still with me, still shaking your head at the audacity, please take a second to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next, because trust me, the story only gets wilder from here. We had just reached the porch when I heard the front door swing open behind us. Emily, wait! It was my dad. My dad. Out here. In front of the entire family. It was a sight I'd never seen before, and he looked utterly undone. His face was pale, like the crisp winter wind had slapped him harder than I ever could. I shouldn't have said that, he stammered, fumbling for words. I don't know why I said it. Please, come back in. Don't leave like this. I stood there for a long moment, the cold air biting at my cheeks, weighing his words. Then, I turned back. You want us to come back in? Apologize. To Logan. Right now. He hesitated, then looked down at my son, his voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, buddy. Then he met my eyes, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher in their depths. I'm sorry, Emily. I nodded, a single, sharp motion. And then, I slapped him. Not out of rage, not even to humiliate him. It was a gesture, a physical punctuation mark. Because sometimes, a line has to be drawn with something more than just words. We left in silence. As I buckled Logan into his car seat, I heard the door click shut behind us. No one came out again. No one tried to stop us. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who looked small walking away. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of notifications, 9 missed calls, 5 frantic voicemails, and 2 texts from my mom that were just crying emojis and a blurry photo of their Christmas tree. Logan and Ava were still curled up in my bed, buried under the weighted blanket, as if trying to hide from the whole messed-up world. I made coffee and, for a little while, at least, I ignored everything. By noon, my Uncle Mark showed up at my front door. I hadn't seen him since my grandmother's funeral, but he had always been the only one on that side of the family who talked to me like I wasn't a screw-up. He stood there, shoulders hunched in a heavy coat, clutching a paper bag with leftover cookies. He looked like he'd just walked out of a war zone. They're freaking out, he said, his voice low. I bet your dad hasn't shut up since you left. He tried to act like it was no big deal, but everyone saw his face after you slapped him. He just went back inside and sat there, staring at the wall. Good, I replied, a dark satisfaction blooming in my chest. Mark paused, then pulled something else out of the bag, Logan's handmade card. It was a little bent, a bit stepped on, but still whole. Thought you'd want this back, he ID softly. It was the only thing your dad picked up off the floor after you left. For a second, a fleeting, foolish second, I thought, this is it. This was the beginning of some weird, cinematic redemption arc where everyone suddenly gets therapy and hugs it out. But then Mark shook his head. Don't forgive him yet. He needed that slap more than anyone I've ever seen. And everyone agrees with you. I've had cousins texting me all morning like it was the best Christmas they've ever witnessed. By that evening, even my mom sent a real message. He wanted to talk. Said things had gotten out of hand. No apology, just excuses. She mentioned stress, money problems, the house, the usual litany of complaints. I didn't respond. The truth is, I felt good. Not proud, not smug, but steady. Like I'd finally broken something that had needed to be shattered a long, long time ago. But I should have known it wasn't over. The next morning, I stepped out to start my car and my breath caught in my throat. The windshield was gone. Not cracked, shattered. Glass glittered everywhere. There were crude boot prints in the fresh snow, and my mailbox had been knocked sideways, like someone had kicked it on their way out. I knew. I knew exactly who did it. A small camera, mounted under my porch light, had caught everything. I'd installed it earlier that fall after some kids messed with our pumpkins. It recorded my dad, in the early hours, glancing around nervously, swinging something heavy at my car, then jogging off down the street like a teenager caught in trouble. My stomach churned. I called the police. 10 minutes later, Officer Garcia pulled up. He'd been trying to flirt with me for months, always finding a reason to say hi at school events or town meetings. This time, he was all business. Until he saw the footage. He watched it once, then again, his expression hardening. "You want to press charges?" he asked, his gaze firm. "Absolutely," I said, without a moment's hesitation. He looked at me, a silent understanding passing between us. "I'll make sure this goes through," he promised. He doesn't get to act like that and walk away from it. By that night, my dad was in custody, 7 days in jail, plus restitution for the damage. Garcia later told me the DA was fine pushing it through because it was so blatant, so deliberate. And because, apparently, it wasn't the first time my dad had had outbursts like this. I wasn't the only one who'd reported him for something before. The family started calling again, but this time, it was different. My Aunt Marlene texted, "What you did was brave." My cousin Leah sent a voice memo that was just 2 words, "You finally did what the rest of us were too scared to." For the first time in my life, I wasn't the family screw-up. I was the one who had finally done something. The morning my dad got out of jail, I woke up early, unbidden. It was still dark, and the house was silent around me. I made coffee, stood at the kitchen window, watching the steam curl up from my mug, wishing it could tell me what was coming next. Logan and Ava were still asleep, tangled in the blankets they'd insisted on bringing into my room every night since Christmas. My phone buzzed. A message from Garcia: "He's out. Let me know if he comes near your house. We've got it documented." I stared at it for a long while. No one teaches you what to do when your own father smashes your car window and ends up behind bars for it. But it turns out, once you stop excusing someone's behavior, you also stop fearing them. That day, no one from my family called. Not my mom, not even the ones who had been blowing up my phone just days before. Just silence. As if they were all waiting to see what he would do next. The following morning, a soft knock on my door. I peered through the blinds and saw Uncle Pete standing on my porch, holding a brown paper bag. I opened the door. "You busy?" he asked. I shook my head, letting him in. He set the bag on my kitchen table with a familiar ease, like he lived there. He didn't sit down right away, just looked around at the dishes in the sink, the kids' school art projects on the fridge, Logan's baseball glove abandoned on the floor. "You've built something good here," he said, his voice tinged with surprise. I didn't say anything. I watched the footage, Emily. "Your dad smashing your windshield like that, it was disgusting." Still, I said nothing, just waited. Then he looked me dead in the eye and said something no one else in that family had ever had the guts to utter. "We've all known for years he's been out of line. The way he talks to people, the way he talks about you, we just let it slide." I let it slide, and I shouldn't have. He finally sat down. "You did the right thing pressing charges." Honestly, it's the only thing that ever got through to him. It hit me then, a wave of clarity. All those years I'd spent thinking I was the problem. That maybe if I was just a little more agreeable, a little more grateful, they'd finally treat me like I mattered. But now the narrative had shifted. I was no longer the disappointment. I was the one who had done what no one else would. Later that night, Garcia stopped by. "No reason," he said, a faint smile playing on his lips, "just checking in." He brought paperwork for the restitution process and a folder of insurance claim forms, but we both knew that wasn't why he came. He glanced up at my broken porch light. "Still broken, huh?" I nodded. "Want me to fix it?" He spent 20 minutes outside, patiently rewiring it. When he came back in, I handed him a soda. He didn't stay long, but before he left, he said something that stuck with me. Most people go their whole lives letting family get away with things they'd never accept from a stranger. You changed that. 2 days later, a letter arrived. Folded by hand, placed in an envelope with no stamp. Someone had dropped it off. It was a summons, family dinner. Saturday at 6. Your father wants to speak. No apology, no explanation, just a command. I didn't trust it. Not one bit. But a tiny, rebellious part of me needed to know what he'd say. So, I called Aunt Jackie. You busy Saturday? What's going on? I explained. Say no more. I'm in, she declared. When we showed up that evening, the house looked dimmer, somehow. The Christmas decorations were still up, but the lights were off, as if even the festive spirit had gone into mourning. My mom answered the door, her eyes swollen, like she'd been crying all day. My dad stood behind her, wearing the same faded gray sweater he'd worn when I was in high school, as if trying to borrow some comfort from the past. We walked in. Jackie didn't say a word, but the way she stood, a silent guardian behind me, told everyone this wasn't going to be a one-on-one. My dad cleared his throat, a small, nervous sound in the heavy silence. I just want to say something. No one stopped him. The room was dead quiet. I was wrong. Just that. No build-up. No excuses. He looked at Logan, who clung tightly to my coat. I scared you. I hurt your mom. I embarrassed this family. And I'm sorry. He looked at me next. 4. You've been angry at the world for a long time. And I made you the target of that anger. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I needed you to hear me say it. Then he said something I truly never thought I'd hear from him. I'm ashamed of myself. My mom spoke next, her voice small, fragile. I've let him treat you this way for too long. I convinced myself it was just who he is, that it was easier not to stir things up. I should have stood up for you. I didn't. I'm sorry, too. Ava watched them both carefully, her little brow furrowed. Logan stepped even closer to me. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect to feel so calm. I nodded. I forgive you. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. But as I looked around that room, a tiny, uneasy voice in my gut whispered that it wouldn't last. The family dinner haunted me for a few days. Not because of what was said, but because of how desperately I wanted to believe it. My dad's apology, my mom's confession, it all sounded real enough. But it clung to me like a strange scent that doesn't belong in a room. Too sweet. Too sudden. Too utterly out of place. So, I tried to accept it. I didn't tell the kids we were magically fixing everything, but I let them write thank you notes for the small gifts my mom sent a few days later. A new puzzle for Logan. A scarf Ava said looked exactly like something I would wear. It almost felt normal. Until it didn't. It was the second week of January. I had just gotten off work and stopped by the grocery store with Logan. We were in the produce section when I heard someone say my name. I turned and saw Marlene, a woman who used to babysit me when I was little, practically a third cousin once removed. She was standing by the oranges with another woman I didn't know. She smiled at me, a wide, sickly sweet grin, like we were old friends. Emily. I heard about everything. What a mess. I gave her a tight nod and tried to keep moving, but then she dropped the bomb. I just hope your father recovers from the whole ordeal. 7 days for a windshield. You must be devastated. I stopped dead in my tracks. I'm sorry? Marlene, suddenly flustered, tried to backtrack. Oh, well, I just meant, your mom's been saying he's really struggling. That the whole thing got blown out of proportion. That maybe you misunderstood. I looked her right in the eye, my voice dangerously low. Did she also say he came to my house before sunrise and smashed my car like a coward? Marlene blinked, her smile completely gone. No, of course not. Thanks for the concern, I cut her off, grabbing Logan's hand. We walked out without buying a thing. The next morning, Aunt Jackie called. I've been hearing things, she said, her voice tight. Nasty stuff. Your mom's been on the phone with half the family telling them you've cut them off over nothing. She's playing the "we were just trying to make things right" card. Are you serious? I asked, a wave of nausea washing over me. Dead serious. And your dad's been talking to guys at the bar like he's the victim, saying you turned the kids against him, that you're unstable, that you've always had issues. I stared blankly at the wall. After everything. Jackie sighed. You need to know the truth, even if it hurts. They can't stand that you didn't come crawling back. They're rewriting it so they look like the wounded parents of a selfish daughter. I felt sick. Not shocked, not angry, just profoundly, depressingly nauseated. They were never going to change. Not really. That apology? It wasn't a turning point. It was a performance, a cynical cleanup job. And I had fallen for it, even if only for a minute. But this time, I didn't cry. I didn't confront. I didn't explain. I just cut them off. Fully. I blocked their numbers. I deleted every email they'd ever sent. I packed up the kids' framed pictures from their house and put them in a box in the garage. When Logan asked about them, I said simply, "We won't be visiting for a while." And he just nodded. That was all he needed to know. But then something unexpected happened. A week later, I ran into Officer Garcia at a school fundraiser. He was volunteering at the bake sale table, trying to look like a normal guy in a hoodie instead of the officer who'd once handcuffed my father in his own living room. He asked how things were going. I told him the truth. It's weirdly peaceful, I said. He smiled. Good. You deserve that. Then, without skipping a beat, he added, if you ever need anything, or someone to talk to who won't tell people you're unstable, I'm around. I didn't answer right away, but something in his voice felt like a door creaking open. Later that night, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine while the kids played inside. It was cold, but I didn't go in. For the first time in my adult life, I realized I didn't owe anyone forgiveness just because they shared my blood. And I certainly didn't owe them access to me, my life, or my children. Let them sit in the silence. Let them spin their stories. I wouldn't be there to correct them. I wasn't planning to ever set foot in that house again. But then Saturday rolled around, and my phone lit up with a message from Rachel. Heads up, they're telling everyone you were invited to a family dinner tonight and refused to come. Words going around that you're still acting unstable. Unstable. That was the word that kept popping up now, wasn't it? Not upset. Not hurt. Not even angry. Just unstable. Like I was some hysterical woman having a nervous breakdown over a few harsh words and a broken windshield. That settled it. I called Aunt Jackie. They're throwing a dinner tonight, aren't they? Yep. Last minute thing. I was invited. Whole extended group. They made it sound like you bailed. Did they actually invite me? Nope. And they're pretending this is some ongoing act of forgiveness, and you just keep rejecting them. I stood in my living room, looking out the window while Ava and Logan colored at the kitchen table. I thought about all the years I'd spent waiting for them to see me clearly. For one single moment where they might treat me like someone worth defending. That moment wasn't coming. Not really. But I could still show up. I could take back the narrative they were trying to twist into something I didn't recognize. So, I got dressed. I called Jackie and told her to meet me there. I dropped the kids off at her place early with a bag of popcorn, some Legos, and a movie lined up. And at 5:55 p.m., I pulled into their driveway. It was packed. I counted 6 cars, maybe more. The house was lit up like nothing had ever gone wrong. I walked straight in. The conversation, a cheerful murmur just moments before, stopped the second the door clicked shut behind me. I didn't say anything right away. I scanned the room. My dad was sitting at the table in one of his old button-up shirts, as if dressing halfway decent would somehow erase what happened. My mom was near the kitchen, holding a tray of deviled eggs. Uncle Pete, Rachel, 2 of my aunts, and at least 3 cousins were already halfway through their plates. No one E.T. my eyes. Until I spoke. So, this is the dinner I apparently refused to attend. All heads turned, a collective snap. My dad stood up slowly, a deer in the headlights. My mom started to say something, but I held up my hand. No one invited me. That's the truth. Let's start there. My dad cleared his throat, trying to regain some composure. We assumed you wouldn't come, given everything. You assumed, I echoed, my voice flat. Then you told people I refused. I looked pointedly at Rachel. She wouldn't meet my gaze. I came here tonight for one reason, to say this face to face. You're not going to rewrite the story. You're not going to keep telling people I overreacted, or that I'm unstable, or that I turned my kids against their grandparents. My voice gained strength, clarity. You smashed my car in the dark like a coward. You stood in front of your own grandson and humiliated him on Christmas. I forgave you. You had a chance. My dad opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. And you blew it. Because the second we left, you didn't reflect. You gossiped. You made yourselves the victims. You told people I was irrational. You acted like I owed you something. The table was dead silent. Then, Jackie stepped through the door behind me, arms folded, a formidable ally. So, she said, her voice dripping with challenge, are you going to deny it? My mom tried, a weak protest. We didn't mean, you meant every word I said, I interjected, cutting her off. You meant it when you told your friends I made a scene. You meant it when you lied about this dinner. I looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. If any of you still believe them after everything, after the footage, after the apology, after the 7 days in jail, then that's fine. But you don't get access to me or my kids anymore. I don't owe anyone here a second of my life. And just before I turned to go, I added, apologize to everyone right now, or I'm gone forever. And next time you try to twist the truth, I'll release the video publicly. Not to shame you, but to protect myself. My dad stood frozen, like a statue carved from defeat. Then, slowly, almost too quiet to hear, he said, I lied. I exaggerated everything. I made it sound like Emily was the problem. She wasn't. He looked down at his feet, his shoulders slumped. I just couldn't admit what I did. My mom whispered something barely audible. We're sorry. It didn't feel satisfying. Not like before. My heart felt tight, still. Like people saying sorry because they had no other option left. I didn't wait for dessert. I didn't wait for a hug. I walked out, and Jackie followed without a word. As we got in the car, she looked over at me, a proud smile on her face. You handled that better than I ever could have. I shook my head. I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. That night, I got a text from Officer Garcia. Hope today wasn't too awful. Still up for that coffee sometime? I smiled. Yeah, I think I am, I texted back. And just before I went to sleep, Rachel sent me a screenshot, a message from my dad in the family group chat. I was wrong. And Emily was right to walk away. I turned off my phone. I didn't need to respond. Let them sit with that now. 2 weeks passed. No messages from my dad. No calls from my mom. The group chat where they used to post chain prayers and birthday wishes went dead silent. I knew better than to believe that meant things were fixed. Silence was their favorite mask. It always looked like peace, but it was just another strategy. Then, on a rainy Tuesday, it slipped. I was picking up Ava from school when one of the other moms, Janelle, the PTA queen, caught me in the parking lot. She smiled that polite, slightly too sweet smile and said in the most casual voice, "Your mom came into the library yesterday. Said she was heartbroken that you're still mad, that you left them with no help for the renovation after stringing them along." I blinked. What? Janelle's smile faded. She must have realized something was terribly wrong. She tried to backpedal. "Oh, I'm sure she didn't mean it like that, but I wasn't listening." I got home and checked Facebook. I don't use it much anymore, but my mom does. And sure enough, there it was, buried in a comment section under one of her friends praying for your family posts. She had written, "Some people forget what it means to be a daughter, but God sees everything." I laughed out loud. One of those short, bitter laughs that doesn't even feel good. I screenshotted it. I didn't send it to anyone. I didn't respond. But I knew exactly what I had to do. I sat down at the dining table while the kids were doing homework and wrote a letter. Not a rant, not a scream. Just a clean, final break. "Dear Mom and Dad," I wrote, my pen firm, "there won't be a next time. There won't be another family dinner." Another apology followed by betrayal. Another passive-aggressive post or whisper campaign behind my back. "You've shown me exactly who you are, and this time, I believe it. You lost access to me and my children the moment you decided your pride mattered more than our trust. Don't reach out again." I printed it, signed it, and dropped it in their mailbox that evening. No return address, no extra note. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. The next few days were quiet. Strangely so. Until Sunday morning. Jackie showed up at my door unannounced, holding a large manila envelope. Inside were several pages printed from a private group text I wasn't in. Screenshots from my mom and dad's new, twisted narrative. I was selfish, delusional, cruel. They said I was using the kids to punish them. That I was never planning to help with the renovations. That I was unstable and maybe not well. And that's when I felt it. The final snap. The moment where something breaks so quietly it almost sounds like nothing. I called Garcia, told him everything, asked what my options were in terms of harassment, slander, anything. He said, "Let me look into it." 2 hours later, he called back. There's a line between petty gossip and targeted harassment, and they just crossed it. He offered to file an official warning. I said, no. Let them talk. Let them choke on their own stories. I wasn't going to give them another ounce of energy. But I did one last thing. I logged back onto Facebook, found a photo of me and the kids on our last trip, smiling in the sun. I posted it. And I added a simple caption, "Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is stop explaining yourself and just live well." Then I blocked every single relative who'd ever sided with them. I deleted the app. I closed the chapter. No rage, no revenge. Just silence. A week later, I took Garcia up on that coffee. It turned into dinner. Then dinner turned into something more. Nothing serious yet, but it was peaceful, it was honest, and the kids liked him, which, for me, said more than anything else. I still hear things, whispers from people in town, a few strange looks. But now, when someone tries to bring them up, I just smile and say, we don't talk anymore. And that's enough. Because I finally understood cutting someone off doesn't always look like slamming a door. Sometimes, it's just choosing not to open it again. Not this year. Not ever. So, I've told you my story. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to draw a line with family? What did that look like for you? Or what would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments below.